to enrich the lives of those living with home nutrition support, both intravenous nutrition, sometimes called HPN or TPN, and tube feeding. We do this through education, outreach, and networking. The Oley Foundation was founded in 1983 by Dr. Lynn Howard and her patient Clarence Oley Oldenburg. Today we serve approximately 17,000 members. All of our programs are free of charge for patients and their families, including the webinar we have here today, again entitled Traveling with IV Nutrition and/or Tube Feeding. First, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping details. You should see a toolbar on the right side of your screen. Click on the orange arrow to show the control panel if it's too small to be seen already. In the questions section, you can type any questions you have for myself or for the presenters. Please note we will not be responding to the hand-raising function in the control panel. We will answer as many of the questions as possible during the questions and answers period at the end of the presentation. In the handout section, you can download the handout provided by one of the presenters on his experiences traveling with tube feeding. We'll be posting a recording of the presentation and handouts after the webinar on the Oley website. We've muted all of the participants, so you don't need to worry if there's a background noise where you are taking this webinar. We are excited to have 3 presenters sharing their experiences today. They are joining us from different locations, so please bear with us if there are any technological issues. Speaking of technological issues, if you're experiencing any on your end, please go to the Citrix website at the address on your screen. It's in the center. It says for technical assistance, please go to, and then it has help.citrix.com/webinar/join, and you can have help from the software manufacturer there. Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce today's speakers. We have Barbara Klingler, Rick Davis, and Susan Buckland. Barbara Klingler became TPN dependent after a volvulus in 1986 left her with only 10.5 inches of small bowel and 2/3 of her colon. She attended the Nutritional Restart Center where she learned what foods were best for her to eat. Today, she infuses 6 nights per week over 11 hours with 1 night of hydration. She's been married for 33 years, and she and her husband Lee both like to travel. They have traveled throughout the Caribbean, been across the U.S. in a motorhome, and taken several cruises. They now fly to Alaska every year where they spend summers living in their motorhome that they leave up there. They enjoy fishing the Kenai River for salmon every year. Barb also enjoys sewing, training her dogs in dog agility, and coaching a children's Bible quiz team. Excuse if you hear any noise in the background. We're at a hospital and a fire alarm is going off for another building. We are also joined today by Rick Davis. Rick suffered a stroke in December 2000. During a 4-year recovery, he relearned how to walk, talk, hike, and ski. However, Rick is still unable to swallow and has a weakened voice. He requires a feeding tube for all nutrition and hydration. He works out regularly at the Y to mitigate his right side weakness from the stroke and is active. Rick has been married for 50 years to Diane. The two of them love to travel to see their son and his family in New England and to experience all the world has to offer. As you can see from the handout available in the toolbar, they don't let tube feeding slow them down. I've just been informed that the fire alarm is actually in our building and I need to leave the building. So please pardon. You're going to let us stay? Okay. I apologize for this and hope it's not too loud, that you're able to hear us over the noise. This is great timing.
Yeah.
We, just so everyone knows, the Oley Foundation is located at Albany Medical Center, so they regularly schedule fire drills, and it's just terribly ironic that they're having one today in the middle of this webinar. So our third presenter today is Susan Buckland from the Transportation Security Administration as well. Susan is a Senior Policy Advisor, Management and Program Analyst, and the TSA Point of Contact and Liaison Officer. She's a member of the Disability and Medical Condition Coalition, the Outreach and Engagement Disability Branch Office of Civil Rights and Liberties, and an ombudsman and traveler engagement Officer for the TSA Department of Homeland Security. We are thankful to have all of you presenting today. Barb, I'm going to turn the presentation to you now.
Hi, my name is Barbara Klingler, and like Roz said, I enjoy traveling. In 1986, when I came home on TPN, I had all the same fears that everybody has. I felt my life was over. I thought I would never travel again. And my husband had an opportunity to go to Japan and Korea, and I sent him alone because the time change was a major issue in my mind. Later, I learned from a long-term TPNer that all you have to do is start changing your hookup time by an hour until you get to the new time. So when you arrive, you are on the new time, and that's not a problem. The realities of TPN, my life wasn't over. It was just different. And yes, I can travel again. It just takes a little bit more planning. Some of my travel experiences are road trips, weekends, long-term. I did 3 Hawaiian islands, the Caribbean islands by air, the Caribbean islands by cruise ship. I went cross-country in my car and spend summers in Alaska in our motorhome, and I'm soon about to do my first Alaskan cruise. One of the key things that you can do before your trip is to make a checklist of the items that you use on a daily basis. This is an example of a TPN Travel Checklist. I broke it down by catheter care, catheter repair kit, which I advocate everyone should own one, and you should travel with it. Make sure the glue is viable. Make sure you have everything that you need to go with it. Your daily supplies, your TPN, all the ancillary supplies. And what I recommend is several months before your trip is to make this list. Hang it where you hook up. And as you hook up, make sure that everything that you touch is on that list. You might not use an item every day, but you may need it. Like the hand soap, you might forget to pack the hand soap because it's always in your setup area. So just use this list, and every time you touch something, say, oh, did I have that on my list? So that verifies your list. I also recommend 2 pumps so that you have a backup pump. Before your trip, your home care company is key to helping you travel. I make up a list and figure out how many days supplies that I need and come up with a list, and then I call my home care company. I discuss my travel dates, have them verify the supplies because 2 eyes are better than 1, and the shipping dates that they can work with their schedule and you can make it work with your travel schedule. And always, always take an extra 2 to 3 days of supplies to allow for an error. If you drop something, you don't want that to be your last syringe. One of the tips that I've developed over the years is to ship your TPN and supplies to arrive the day before you leave. Not the day you get there, but the day before you leave. Then you can call your destination, your family member, the hotel, wherever you sent it, to make sure that it has arrived and that it's stored properly before you even leave on your trip. There's a lot of peace of mind knowing that when you're getting on that plane, that your TPN's already there waiting for you. I carry a backpack pump and batteries, and you can see here I have 2 of them. So if one goes bad, I've got a backup. And I always carry either 9-volt or AAA, whatever kind of batteries that your pump takes. I like to package my supplies in Ziplocs, especially if you're doing a car ride. I like to maybe package 2 days supplies in each Ziploc. And then if you're just traveling along and you stop in at a hotel one night and then another hotel the next night, all you have to do is grab that Ziploc. You're not rooting through 2 weeks worth of supplies trying to find the syringe or the tubing. I just put it in a Ziploc. And if you don't use a sterile field at home, I advise you to take it when you travel so that if you don't have the ideal place to set up like you do at home, that you can lay out a sterile field and have a safe place to hook up your TPN. I also recommend traveling with a catheter repair kit. I've had a Hickman catheter repaired with a Groshong repair kit. Needless to say, it didn't work. And I was in the Bahamas getting ready for scuba diving, and the end popped off like a champagne cork. So if you have the supplies that you need to fix your catheter, at least you can take it to the hospital or the surgeon and say, here, can you repair this? I use a toiletry bag. It doubles as a dressing change kit. When you open it up, you can see on the left here, this is all my dressing change supplies that I need. And remember to take your thermometer with you and your hand wash, and anything that you could possibly need, make sure you keep that. And it's all in a little zipper bag to keep secure. But when I go into the bathroom to take my shower, I've got all my needed items for my catheter change. Okay, I discussed the first item. Get a letter of medical necessity from your doctor if you're not traveling by car. I have never had to use it, but I've always offered it when I go through TSA. If they give you any question or anything, we travel with a lot of things. So if I say I have a letter from my doctor that explains this is all medically necessary, it usually helps you get through. Call TSA Cares. Here's the phone number, and I'm sure our next presenter will have that information for you too, but TSA Cares, they will walk you through and help you get on that airplane a lot faster. My first trip on an Alaskan cruise is leaving out of Canada. So my home care company said that due to customs, I need to take it with me. So they have supplied me with a soft-sided rolling cooler with supplies, and I can put all my TPN in there with gel packs and tell them that it's 100% medical so that I won't be charged extra baggage. And that'll be a new experience for me, but that's what I've been told to do. I've called the airlines. The airline says you don't need to say anything extra. We don't need to make a note on your account or anything. Just bring it all and I'll have my letter. And then Oley's website also offers some travel tips that you can refer to that are very helpful. These are the soft-sided coolers that I've been supplied. You can see there's lots of pockets and zippers in them. The top's got storage area, and it's got wheels on it, and it also doubles as a backpack. So if you're not wheeling it, you can grab it as a backpack. It's going to be heavy. I plan on putting 6 TPN in each package, and then I'll be taking my hydration on the plane. And this is supposed to fit in the overhead compartment, so I'll be able to walk it through customs on my own instead of having to worry about it. Another secret is learn to pack light. Mix and match your clothes. It sounds silly, but if you can pack light, then that makes traveling a lot easier. Just take less clothes, mix and match, and then that way you have room for all your supplies. I don't know what that noise. I also travel with my medical power of attorney and my living will, because what good is this paperwork if you need it and it's at home? You want to get familiar with traveling? Start with a weekend car trip. Go overnight. Have your list. Make sure your list works. It's not so bad if you maybe drove 2 hours away, and if something goes wrong, you can go home. So start with something that you're comfortable with. Start with a weekend car trip, or go to an Oley conference where you're not alone. You can connect and meet other people. And then the sky or the sea is the limit. Don't be afraid to travel. We were all afraid in the beginning, but now I go everywhere. Thank you.
Thanks, Barb. That was wonderful. In case Barb didn't mention, this is Barb and her husband Lee, and they're on one of the trips fishing in Alaska. It's a wonderful photo. Our next presenter is Rick Davis. And Rick, I believe you don't have slides, so I'll just go back to my slides. But you can begin talking now, Rick.
Thank you, Roz. I provided a handout, and perhaps at some time during my talk, and I'm not going to talk very long because my esophagus was paralyzed by my stroke, and also the right side of my vocal cords, so my voice is weak and I can't talk for very long, but I'll do the best I can. The first travel I did was about a year after my stroke. I was not fully recovered, but I realized that I had not been able to swallow, and no one could tell me why. So I traveled to specialists around the country. I went to Northwestern University in Chicago. I went to Columbia University in New York. I went to, and I've forgotten the name of the university, but it was in Houston. And I saw otolaryngologists, PhD swallowing therapists, neurologists, people who had experience dealing with people who had difficulty swallowing. I had taken swallowing therapy from my speech therapist for more than a year with no results. I flew, not even thinking about what I needed to do it. I just took all of my tube feeding supplies, my syringes, my bags, etc., and my formula with me in my luggage. Not a big deal. Then I went to my first Oley conference in 2002, and I learned a lot of things that I've been able to use since then, and I began trying to travel for pleasure with my wife. And along the way, I've learned a number of things, and the handout explains many of the things or mistakes that I made that I've been able to learn from. And now my travel is very easy, much easier than Barbara's, because tube feeding doesn't involve nearly the kinds of precautions and care that Barbara and other TPN users must follow. I can feed myself anywhere, in a restaurant restroom, in an airport restroom, in the tiny restrooms on a cruise ship, whatever. I really have had no problems except with getting my formula overseas. I've tried many different ways to do that, taking it with me, shipping it in advance, and I found the easiest thing to do is to buy my formula when I get to the country that I'm visiting. Luckily for me, I was in Washington, D.C. for a conference, and they had a huge snowstorm that closed all 3 of the airports. I ran out of the formula that I use, Osmolite, which is manufactured by Abbott, and so I went across the street to a drugstore and I bought some liquid youre, and I learned that that was all I needed for the next 4 days until the airports reopened. Now I buy youre in the countries that I go to. Most of them I check by just Googling Abbott and the name of the country that I'm going to, and I usually find the places where youre is available. I learned that when I go to South Africa next year, for example, I can buy youre at any of 400 drugstores operated by Clicks, a drugstore chain in South Africa. For me, it's very easy. Buy my formula there because it works. If you can't buy your formula there, check with Abbott's corporate office. Just call their 800 number. They will connect you and let you know how you can find whatever type of formula you use in the country where you are visiting. I did that for many years until I learned that I could get it there by myself without having to bother the Abbott corporate office. And with that, I'm open for questions, or we can hear from Susan Buckland, who is scheduled next to walk you through TSA.
Right, Rick, we'll turn the presentation over to Susan next, and then we'll take questions at the end, if that's okay.
Okay with me.
Okay. Susan, I believe you have slides, and I'm going to turn this over to you now then.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Susan Buckland. If you'll hold 1 second, let me get my slides up.
Okay, and Susan, are you seeing the screen where it allows you to pull up the slides? Yes, okay, good.
Yes, did you see them?
Yep.
All right, so I think we're good to go. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so very much for the opportunity to speak today. I'm third, and the first two are really a hard act to follow. But I want to just talk a few minutes here on this first slide and give you just a little bit of background information about TSA, about Transportation Security Administration. TSA's mission is to protect the freedom of movement of people and commerce so that we can all travel safely. And TSA screens more than 2.2 million travelers a day. I wanted to let you all know that all TSA personnel receive training with emphasis on treating passengers with dignity, respect, and sensitivity. The screening that is conducted depends on the passenger's disability or medical condition and the technology in use at the checkpoint, plus the needs communicated by the passenger. It's so very, very important that you communicate. I just cannot emphasize that enough, that when you are going through the screening process, that you communicate what your specific needs are with each person that you encounter that are doing your screening, or with the TSA officer. We have programs that are very beneficial for individuals with disabilities, for travelers with disabilities and medical conditions, and I want to just go over those just for a few minutes.
Susan, I hate to interrupt you. Susan, I'm going to ask you to click on the icon so that we can see your full slide. We're not seeing the full slide. If you go in the bottom right-hand corner, go 2 icons to the left. Oh, that'll work too. That's fine. That's good. Perfect.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
I have my screen zoomed in so that I can read it, but this is fine. I hope everyone can see it now. Okay, so as I was saying, I wanted to share some information about some of the programs that TSA has that are very beneficial for travelers with disabilities and medical conditions. And the first one is TSA Care, and I see Barb talked about that just a few minutes ago, or briefly touched on it. So many of you have probably heard about TSA Care. TSA Care is a helpline that provides travelers with disabilities and medical conditions assistance during the screening process. Actually, I should say it helps you prepare for security screening also, and it can also help you during the security screening process. You can call TSA Care, you can contact the center, and a TSA Care call center agent will answer any questions that you may have regarding the security checkpoint screening. You can let them know about your specific disability or medical condition, and they will be able to share information with you about your specific type of screening and what to expect. I've included the toll-free number here, and if you are an individual who is deaf or hard of hearing, or if you have other communication challenges, you can use the federal relay number, 711, or you can also send an email. I always advise people who talk with me that if you call TSA Care and you talk with an agent, or if you call TSA Care and you leave a voice message, that you also follow up with an email. That's very, very helpful for you as an individual. The hours of operation, 8 to 11 Eastern Time, Monday through Friday, and 9 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, weekends and holidays. I want to remind you that airports have different resources. And so the level of assistance that you may receive at an airport that is coordinated by TSA Care will be different. It may be different from what you've experienced at a previous airport if you've used the services before, because the resources are different. They vary. So just want to remind you about that. You can find out more information about TSA Care on TSA.gov. And that's true for most everything that I'm talking about here today. You can go on TSA.gov and get more information. So for assistance during screening, TSA Cares can coordinate checkpoint support with the TSA customer. Excuse me here, let me go to the next slide. With a customer support, TSA customer support manager located at the airport, or they may coordinate assistance with a passenger support specialist, or what we call a PSS. Passenger support specialists are specifically trained staff members who provide additional assistance at security checkpoints for individuals with disabilities or medical conditions. When you call TSA Care, if you give them your itinerary, you tell them what your departing airport is, and you ask for that additional assistance, then they will forward your itinerary to your departing airport and coordinate that service for you. Again, I want to remind you the level of assistance that you may receive at one airport will be different than, or may be different than, what you've received at another airport. At some airports, for example, you may have a passenger support specialist who would, be able to meet you at the curbside. Whereas in other situations, the passenger support specialist may meet you at the checkpoint, or they may just provide your itinerary to the lead transportation security officer at the checkpoint the day of your departure, and make sure that they are informed, that TSA officers are informed that you will be arriving. So also, if you want to learn more about passenger support specialists, you can also go on TSA.gov and get more information about passenger support specialists. And then another beneficial program that we have that many of you, I'm sure, have heard about is called TSA PreCheck. It's an expedited screening program, and generally the lines are shorter with less wait time. With TSA PreCheck, you do not need to remove your shoes, your 311 liquids, your laptop, your light outerwear jacket, and your belt. You can sign up for TSA PreCheck online, and you can also schedule an appointment at the enrollment center nearest you. TSA PreCheck applicants will undergo a background check. It costs $85 for the application processing fee, and it's non-refundable. TSA PreCheck is valid for 5 years. One thing that I want to bring to your attention specifically is if you are TSA PreCheck eligible, if you do have TSA PreCheck, that you can now go online to TSA.gov to this website, and it will let you know about the TSA PreCheck lane of your departing airport. You can get more information there. You can put in your zip code or the name of the airport and get more information about TSA PreCheck, if the lane is open and so forth. Again, you can get more information about TSA PreCheck just as you can with TSA Care and the Passenger Support Specialist Program at TSA.gov. Another item that I think you'll be very interested in learning about, if you don't already know about this, is TSA Disability Notification Card. The TSA Disability Notification Card is a basic, nonverbal way to communicate to TSA officers. You can use the TSA Disability Notification Card to inform the TSA officers about your disability, about your medical condition, about assisted devices, about your medications, about medically necessary liquids. You can write those items in on the card. And that is just a way that you can initiate that communication process with the TSA officers. However, I want you to remember that the card does not exempt you from screening, but it does just provide a nonverbal way to communicate with TSA officers and to start that communication process. And this is a copy of the TSA notification card. You can go online, TSA.gov. We have a specific link for individuals or travelers with disabilities and medical conditions. The card can be downloaded. It can be printed out. And this first part here is the front, and this is the back. And you just fill in the information that you would want with a pen or a pencil, and just fill in right here what you would want to share with the TSA officer and hand that to them. So planning your trip. If you're going to use TSA Care, you want to be sure you call 72 hours in advance of your departure time, because you want to give TSA Care enough time to coordinate with your departing airport, to coordinate with a customer service manager or with a passenger support specialist at the departing airport. You want to arrive early. General rule is to arrive 2 hours prior to your departing time. If you have medically necessary liquids, you want to declare those for inspection, and the TSA officer may need to conduct additional screening of those items. If you have external or internal medical devices, you'll want to also declare those, and the TSA officers may need to conduct additional screening. Just communicate your specific needs to the TSA officer before screening begins. The next slide is information about the 311 liquids rule exemption. This is information that is on our TSA.gov, but I wanted to bring it out and bring it to your attention that you can bring medically necessary liquids, medications, creams, in excess of 3.4 ounces or 100 milliliters, in your carry-on. You can remove it from your carry-on bag, be screened separately from the rest of your belongings. You're not required to place those in a plastic zip top bag, although, it could be a good idea. If a liquid, gel, or aerosol declared as medically necessary alarms, then you may be required to have additional screening. Also, and it may not be allowed. Also, accessories, as Barb showed about her cooler a few minutes ago, so you can have ice packs, freezer packs, gel packs, and other accessories may be presented at the screening checkpoint in a frozen or partially frozen state to keep your medically necessary liquids cool. All items, including supplies associated with medically necessary liquids, such as your IV bags, your pumps, syringes, must be screened before they'll be permitted into the secure area. Also screening, TSA officers might test the liquids, gels, or aerosols for explosives or concealed prohibited items. If they're unable to use X-ray to seal the items, they may ask to open and transfer the contents to a separate empty container or dispose of a small quantity of it, if feasible. If you do not want your liquid medication to be screened by X-ray or open, then you need to let the TSA officer know, and they will take additional steps to clear the liquid so that you may be able to go, so that you will undergo additional screening procedures to include a pat down and screening of other carry-on property. So, I wanted to bring also external, internal medical devices. This is also information that is on our TSA.gov website. You want to inform them if you have a bone growth stimulator, spinal stimulator, neurostimulator port, feeding tube, insulin pump, ostomy, and other medical devices. The more information you can share about this upfront into screening, the more information that the TSA officer will have and will be able to know how to proceed with the screening and where it's located. You want to let them know where it's located. Also, you can use the TSA disability notification card that I shared with you a few minutes ago. And then even Barb talked a few minutes ago about other medical documentation that you might be able to have from your doctor. And you will want to submit the device for X-ray screening. If you can safely disconnect, you would want to consult with the manufacturer of the device to determine whether it can pass through X-ray, metal detector, or the AIT, Advanced Imaging Technology for screening. If you can't disconnect, then it may require additional screening, and in sensitive areas might be, in sensitive areas, they're subject to careful and gentle inspection. Again, you know, external, internal medical devices continue here. Advanced imaging technology, or AIT, can facilitate your screening and reduces the likelihood of a pat down. So inform the officer that you have something such as an artificial knee, a hip, or other metal implants, or pacemaker, defibrillator, or other internal medical devices. And, you know, you should not, of course, be going through a walk-through metal detector if you have an internal medical device such as a pacemaker. But then again, you would want to check with your doctor prior to supplying. If you do choose not to be screened through the AIT, or you are allowing the walk-through metal detector, you will undergo a pat-down screening. So I wanted to let you also know that we have a TSA coalition. We have a TSA Disability and Medical Condition Coalition. We engage regularly with a coalition of organizations representing individuals with disabilities and medical conditions. We currently have a distribution list of over 450 names, but we also have an addition, probably around about 300 some organizations. That includes federal, state, local, grassroots, disability organizations throughout the United States. We meet regularly. We meet annually. We are right now in the process of getting set up and prepared for our annual conference that will be held this fall. We are always looking to receive feedback from individuals in the community. I want to let you know that the Oley Foundation is a partner of the TSA Disability and Medical Condition Coalition. There's ongoing engagement between Oley and TSA and myself as the point of contact, and also other staff members. We invite you to participate, engage with us. We value you. We value your feedback. It's very, very important for all of us to engage and communicate about our needs so that we can learn from each other and continuously improve. This last page is contact information. If you have a claim, sometimes we get information from individuals who will want to file a claim with us. We are not the correct entity for that. This is the general information that you would want to use for a claim. If you do have a complaint, we are the right branch. We are the disability branch. We are the right place for you to file your complaint. If you feel that you have been discriminated against and in security screening, then this would be the information that you would want to use. Again, all of this information is on TSA.gov. You go on our home page. When you're on the home page, if you look over on the left-hand corner, you'll see an icon. It's the international icon, disability icon of an individual in a wheelchair. You click on that, and it will take you to our disability branch webpage. So here is the link, the last one on the bottom to that. And then again, there's TSA PreCheck. There's information. If you need more information about TSA PreCheck, this is the website link, and then the application and customer service. And I thank you again very much for allowing me the opportunity to talk with you today. If you have any additional questions after we get off, please do not hesitate to reach out to me and send me an email. Thank you so very much. Rod?
Thank you, Susan. That was a wonderful presentation. We're glad that you were able to put forth so much information about the TSA. And I just want to note that the slides that were provided for this presentation will also be available on the Oley website. So in case you didn't write down everything because there was a lot of information on Susan's slides, know that that will be available. The direct address would be oley.org/webinars, and that's where the recording will be also. So now it's time for our Q&A, and how we'll handle this is I will read the questions and the presenters will address them as they are, as their expertise allows. questions that we don't have time to get to, I will be happy to answer later. You can always email me. I can also put answers on the website for ones that were sent in ahead of time. My email address, if you have future questions, is in the contact information for this webinar, but I will also read it out loud to you. It's dahlr@mail.amc.edu. So our first question is about getting through TSA with fluids. The person who is asking this seems to feel that there is no standardization between the airports and has asked how this all can be streamlined. Susan, can you address this question?
Yes, absolutely. What I want to say to this is that each airport, TSA at each of the different airports have different resources available. So the resources are going to be variable. So your screening at one may not be exactly the same as what it is at other airport. So, and also I just want to remind everyone that we have to remain unpredictable for those that have intentions of doing us harm or trying to get something through the checkpoint that is prohibited.
Okay, the next question is also for you, Susan. It says that there are many variations in the TSA screening when I travel with my TPN in a roll-on cooler. I go through the pre-check line and see everything from checking each bag of TPN to just swabbing the zippers on the bag. I always allow for extra time, but is there any other information that you can provide on this?
Okay. So if you are an individual that has TSA PreCheck and you go through the TSA PreCheck line, if you are an individual that alarmed or if you had more than 3.4 ounces or 3 ounces, then the TSA officer is going to screen you accordingly just to so that he or she can clear the alarm. Again, it goes back to TSA will always incorporate random and unpredictable security measures and screening throughout the airport.
Okay, great. Thank you, Susan. Rick, the next question is going to be aimed towards you. It's about tube feeding. It said, we've had 8 months of tube feeding and we haven't traveled anywhere at all with my 6-year-old since the surgery. We're thinking about taking a trip this summer and a little bit nervous about mishaps, motion sickness, and what ifs. I think you covered a lot of this in your talk, Rick, but is there anything you wanted to add specifically for this parent of a child on tube feeding?
I would only say that if the child did not get car sick before tube feeding, it's unlikely that the child would get car sick while tube feeding or since he has been tube feeding. Nothing about it should cause any motion sickness. As for tips, just see the handout and how to prepare for it. Traveling by car is very easy. I don't think you would have any mishaps unless you had an accident like I did trying to drive 1,000 miles a day and feeding myself while I was doing it, stopping only for gas and bathroom breaks, and pulling down my pants so fast that I pulled out the tube that was connected to it also. Don't do that.
Okay, thanks, Rick. Rick, the next question I believe would be good for you to comment on also. This is someone who uses blenderized formula. They're taking food, putting it in a blender, and then putting it through their tube. And they are wondering about a current converter for when they travel. Do you have any tips on that? Having been overseas.
You need an electrical converter for the country that you're going to. If you're traveling with the blender, you already know to be careful in choosing the foods that you blenderize. I had an experience in Vietnam on a river cruise, and I asked them to blenderize my food. Well, apparently they were not careful about the kind of food they put in it. They either didn't wash it well or whatever, but I suffered diarrhea. And because of that experience, I only bought my local Ensure in Vietnam that I used for the rest of the trip. Blenderizing it yourself, I don't see any problem. Asking it to be blenderized, you should be sure that whoever is doing it is careful about being cautious with the kinds of food they use in the preparation.
Okay, great. That's good advice, Rick. Rick, I think the next one is also something that you would probably be best at addressing first. This person will be traveling for 4 weeks to Norway, Estonia, and Germany this June. Her husband has had his Gtube for about 3 weeks when they wrote this, so I guess they've had it about 2 months now. They're just starting to do research, including getting in touch with TSA, their airline, and Abbott Labs, who provides their Gevity. Rick, I think you did, again, cover this about buying the tube feeding in the destination countries yourself, but is there more that you want to add to that?
Yes, I would recommend for a first-time traveler internationally with a tube that you contact Abbott corporate office. They have an 800 number on all of their containers. I did that for several trips, and they were wonderful. In some cases, they delivered the product to my hotel room when I arrived. In other cases, they told me where I could pick it up, most often at a drugstore. They had the specific kind of formula that I used at the time, Gevity and Osmolite. They're very happy to provide that kind of assistance. Once the tube feeder has done that a few times and they're aware that they can buy Ensure, if they can tolerate Ensure, then they can do like I do and just buy it when they get there. But for the first time, it will help their confidence to have Abbott intervene and to help them with that process.
That sounds great, Rick. This person could also talk to their clinician before they leave home to be sure if there was a problem getting the Gevity, how does the clinician feel about them substituting Ensure if there was an issue?
That's a very good point. I did it by trial and error. I had no choice except to use Ensure, and I found out that it didn't cause me any problems. I've used it when I've gone hiking in a powder form because it's lighter to carry in my backpack. When I hiked the Grand Canyon, for example, I just mixed up the powdered Ensure with water and fed myself at each of the watering stops. For me, it's not a problem, but I would say that what works for me may not work for somebody else. Check with your clinician or try it before you have to depend upon it.
Right. What's of note here is that Rick is on tube feeding for a swallowing disorder, so the rest of his digestive system is not compromised, where some people who are on tube feeding, the lower GI is compromised, and therefore switching formulas might be more difficult in terms of tolerance or ability to switch. Or if you're diabetic, you clearly need to seek advice from your clinician about whether you can switch to a different formula. Susan, I was also wondering whether you had any additional tips for these people who are going to Norway, Estonia, and Germany. They say that they're contacting TSA and their airline. Was there anything else you wanted to add specific about that because it's international travel?
Not because of the international traveling, no. I would, just encourage that individual or the family to contact TSA Care if they have any concerns or issues, and to contact TSA Care like 72 hours ahead of time contact TSA Care and ask any questions that they may have regarding their departing screening checkpoint, and just, get their anxiety and anxiety that they may have relieved. Also to check on TSA.gov at the email address or the web link that I provided in that last slide, that you'll have this information on traveling and under special procedures. I would recommend that.
Roz, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Rick.
The only other thing I would recommend for international travel, well, there are probably several things, but something that I have found very useful is to have a letter from your doctor translated into the language of the country that you're visiting. It's a courtesy. Many of those people in those countries use English or know how to use English. I had an experience in India where the security agents just went a little bit crazy when they saw my formula. I couldn't understand them, they couldn't understand me. I had an Indian guide who resolved the situation, but since then I have always had a letter in the language of the country that I'm visiting that explains my situation.
That's a great tip there, Rick, yes, to add. The next question is for you, Barb. It says, what are some of the checklist items to be sure of prior to someone traveling with nutrition support? And I know you gave that wonderful slide that had a kind of a checklist for TPN, and that was wonderful advice, preparing ahead of time so that you can look at your list while you're hooking up to make sure you haven't missed an item, anything you touch. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that checklist?
No, that would be the key, would be to have that list ahead of time and make sure that as you're hooking up that everything you're touching is on that list, because it's so easy to overlook things. Even during a month, you think you have a fever and you go and take your temperature and you get the thermometer out of your medicine cabinet. Well, you should have a thermometer with you. You should have scissors with you to cut the tape or whatever you use scissors for. But everything that you use, make sure that you check that list for maybe 2 to 4 weeks before your trip to make sure that everything is on your list, and travel with that list. Keep that list in a note on your iPhone, but have that list and go over it.
Great. Rick, is there anything you would add?
Go ahead. Roz, can I just highlight some of the tips to do in advance that are on the handout, but I think those who may not get the handout would appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. When you're flying, I think it's always a good idea to carry a supply of formula in your carry-on, just in case of a delay or a missed flight. Although Barbara said, and I have experienced, a doctor's letter is seldom needed in the United States for TSA, but a doctor's letter in their language is always useful when flying overseas. Home care companies will deliver their products, your products, anywhere in the United States, including Hawaii and Alaska. They will not make deliveries to international destinations. Trying to send packages of your formula is very expensive. And even if you do send it, as I did by parcel post, U.S. Customs or the customs office of the countries you're going to may deny your delivery of that. Carrying your formula in your baggage can be very burdensome. I tried that going to South America. I carried 32 days worth of formula that weighed over 100 pounds, and I did not enjoy hauling that with me, and I will never do it again. Also for international destinations, carry all of your supplies, that is your syringes, your tubes, your backup Mickeys, etc. with you. I learned in New Zealand that tube feeding uses youre lock syringes, and I didn't have any. I went to a local hospital, and the nutrition very gladly donated all that I needed for my male and female connectors. I think it was a major point I wanted to make. There are others that and I'd be willing to answer any of the questions.
Okay. The next question, and we're starting to get, we've only got 5 minutes left, so if we can keep this in mind, and I've got still 6 more questions for you guys. The next person was interested if there's any information on TSA restrictions that may impact flight. And they don't specify this, but Susan, I think what they're referring to can be whether or not you can run a pump through TSA security and on board in an airline. And those pumps, you know, they're small, they're portable, there's different brands. Do you have any advice on that, Susan, or Rick or Barb, afterwards?
What I suggest is that you go on TSA.gov. There is a website that is titled, What Can I Bring? It's a link, and it provides a list of prohibited items. It's broken out into categories, or you can look at it and review the prohibited list. It's alphabetized. The link is TSA.gov, Travel, Security Screening, What Can I Bring? And I'm more than happy to leave that information with you as well, But it's just a wonderful list. You can go in and you can actually do a search. You can type in any item that you may have questions about, and it will tell you whether you can carry on that item or whether you need to pack that item or whether it would be allowed at all through TSA security screening. If it's regarding the airline, you would want to contact the airline that you are traveling with if you're not sure whether the airline would allow your item.
Okay, great. Thanks, Susan. Rick or Barb, did you have anything to add?
Rose, may I add to that? I learned a lot from Barbara, but I've never used advanced arrangements with TSA. I've always found that the TSA staff are well trained and professional. I always try and be polite and patient and say nothing that is not necessary. I found that 4 words usually work. The first 2 are medical liquids when I put my bag on the conveyor belt. They check the containers of formula. They swab them and analyze them. And when they're done, which only takes a few minutes, they pass me through, and my last 2 words are thank you.
Great. Barb, did you have anything you wanted to add or to that?
No.
Okay. No. All righty. So this question is about dealing with venues that have all meals included. And this person said there's no visible options for us non-eating types. And they give the example of cruise lines and all-in-one resorts. Rick, I think that might be a good one for you to comment on since you don't eat anything by mouth.
I have had my food sent to the cruise line embarkation ports. I have bought it locally and then carried it on board with me. All of that at my own expense, even though I'm paying like a cruise line for all of the food that I'm not able to consume. However, I'm going to try when I go to South Africa to ask Talk Tours who have said that they can arrange substitute meals for special needs. If they will arrange to buy and prepare for me ensure all the time that I am with them on safari. The cost for the daily 2,200 calories of Ensure is less than $8. I think that would probably be preferable for Talk Tours than feeding me 3 meals a day that would probably cost at least twice that. I'll let you know how that works out.
Okay. So I still have more questions, but we have run out of time for our webinar. So how I'd like to handle that is for the people I didn't get to your questions, you can either email me directly or look on the website. I'm going to post the answers to the questions that still haven't been addressed. And again, the email address is dahlr@mail.amc.edu, or the Oley website where the information will be posted is oley.org/webinars. This is the web page on the Oley website where you can find most of the information, the tips, as well as information on contacting TSA and contacting experienced travelers that are Oley members. And in conclusion, I would like to thank Barb, Rick, and Susan for an excellent presentation today. We appreciate you sharing your expertise. It's been wonderful. We've learned a lot. I'd like to thank Shire for supporting this important educational program, and I'd also like to thank the participants for joining us. You've been very patient with all the technical issues and the sound. We will be posting a recording of this presentation, and again, those Q&A and the handout and the slides at oley.org/webinars. We hope you'll join us for another webinar in the future. Listings of webinars are also on that webpage. At oley.org/webinars. And thank you for joining us. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.